technology. There's somebody who's talking about making a small film, and they wanted sheep in the film. So somebody put her on to me, and is this the comment? It's just I'm just going to keep talking now because that's what I want to do. Um, the So then she rang this morning to say she'd ring later on in the day, and then she rang again during the first live thing. That kind of cut off. I was ringing back and trying to get through, and um, I think it was just her bottom. Is that what they call it? Like when she sat on the phone, it rang me because all I could hear was blah, 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 and just chatting to somebody. And I'd say her phone battery has died now. So it was just so much messing around, trying to figure out what was going on with this person. So, and there is a comment. Is that gone to the old one? Oh, Stephanie. Oh, you back, Stephanie? Wound up. Hi, Stephanie, and it's good to be back. I had a lovely weekend last week, a family time. I'll be telling my patrons all about it, but I wouldn't. It's not for general knowledge, but it's great to have the patrons, and we'll have a chat. Everybody is good here this morning. We have Dinah eating away, Silky above her. There's Unity. Harold is here like a little kitten. He is. And he's so wonderful now, because after being castrated, he doesn't smell or he's not aggressive. He's just a pure little pata. He's my pure little pata. So he's great, and they're all in good form. They did have a kind of a restless night. I don't know what happened. It's happened. I must kind of keep a diary more, but it kind of seemed they had a restless night. That's all I can say. There was something about them and something about the shed that just made it seem there was a lot going on. Now, it's very hard to explain, but you just get that feeling. And I don't know what it was. And I was just thinking, maybe at some stage, if I'm ever set up, that I could have a webcam, and I'd know then if there was something going on or not. But it just seemed, I don't know, it looked like were they chased? Was something in the field? No, they could have just taken a fright. I don't know what it was, but they're all fine now again anyway. They're all resting and chewing the cud and enjoying the beautiful day. We were supposed to have rain yesterday, I think, but it's not happened, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen today either. I'm going to have to get a cushion because I'm up against this wire here. And we might even this might be, I don't know how this is. No, this won't work either. Me and Harold. Look at you. Can you see him? Look at you, Mr. Boniface. Boniface. God, I haven't heard. Was that in Shakespeare? King Boniface? Boniface. So yeah, no, back up against the wire again, I think. Yes, and before I had a visitor, a friend visiting, and it just kind of took over. So I said, look, I'm going to take 2 weeks holidays from things and try and get back on track after that. Because very soon teaching work should happen again, and I'll have more of a very extensive, probably more controlling, but probably better in a sense, schedule. That there'll be this every Friday, this every Tuesday, that every Wednesday, having to get ready. So there'll be no time for fun. There'll be time for the goats, of course, but you see the work with the goats gets a little bit different because they'll be drying up. Somebody asked yesterday when they'll be drying up. It all depends, not on the weather, not on their circumstances, not the time of year. It really, in my estimation, it's light. It's the amount of light you have. So this kind of weather is very bright. There's a good length to the day. So they have a good lot of milk. Now they've just gone into new grass, which does help. But really, as it comes into October, they'll definitely be drying up. They've probably dried up a little bit already. They'll go into another step down, another step down. And eventually it might be every second day. And you have to kind of keep milking them and cleaning them out because you can't just stop overnight because the milk could just sit in the others, and that's not very good for next year's milking. So, and then again, it gets more complicated when Tiberius and Bonaparte will be running with them. Ah, very good. Hi, Marianne. Lovely to see you. He's in. Look at him. Look at him. I'll go this way. It's better than. He is just like a snug in the rug. He's breathing very fast. But they have water. I'd say it's just the heat. Yeah, he's soaking it up. But he's in great form. So, yeah, so they just dry up little by little, but still kind of quickly. And as I say, once the puck starts running with them, that's much harder because now the pucks, God bless them, they don't get very aggressive, but they are a little aggressive. These are my girls, and are we going in? Are we going out and stuff? So it is a bit harder to milk them. Our dog captain last year, I had him run with the she's all the winter until they started kidding, and then I moved him away. So we'll see how the boys get on this year. It would be, Tiberius is great, but I suppose Tiberius is only here for 1 year. Bonaparte is here for 2. So I hope to move Tiberius on, but he's a fantastic looking goat. And Bonaparte will be here for 2 years then. And we have little, I'm going to get caught. I'm talking about all these pucks, and I'm going to have all these little white fluffy ones, because I bet you Druid is probably coming into maturity as well, and I just haven't noticed him because he's just not being very aggressive yet like the others were, so I do have to watch out for that. Yes. So I have a few little things in the pipeline that I want to talk to people about and get their advice. I was going to try and do storytelling workshops over the summer. It just didn't happen. But what I'm thinking of doing is having a storytelling workshop for 10 people. Oh, either online or visiting. You can do it online and be on the laptop on the table, or visit and be there as well. So what I'm thinking of doing is having it at Halloween, the Celtic seasons at Halloween, Samhain, the 1st of February then for Imbolug, the 1st of May for Bealtaine, and around the 1st of August for Lunasa. Lunasa one might take in a lot of people, but definitely 10 people this Halloween. You can do it online, or you can come and visit and be here with me, because I've just checked, there's a lot of neighbours who have Airbnb and they'll be open for Halloween. And what it would consist of is the first session would be very much about the story of the year, the story of Halloween, why people do things around Halloween, how do we see Halloween like people, and I'd love to get input from people. And at the end of that then as well, and see where people are with stories and what they want the storytelling for and what they want the storytelling workshop to be. And then at the end I would have different, like say if there's 10 people, I would have 10 objects, natural objects found that I've been looking at and finding and putting away. So if you're online, you can say number 6. If you're there visiting, you can say, oh, I'll have the shell or the stick or whatever. And that would be the starting point for your story. Then that afternoon, I think Harold is dreaming. Just like a dog does. He's breathing quickly and he's making these little sounds if he's running or jumping and stuff. So I think he's dreaming. Maybe I'm dreaming that he's dreaming. So the second section would be more of a kind of a lecture, and a very much what to think about when you are telling a story, or how a story should be. So you would use the object you have, the first lecture, into kind of structuring your story a little bit more. Then that's Saturdays. Then the first session on Sunday morning would be where people would actually advance their ideas, say what they're thinking. We can do it very much kind of a one-to-one or a group, and people can give ideas. Yes, look at you. Can give ideas of how it would go and stuff like that. And we'd work around that. So then Saturday afternoon would be another very kind of definite, structured workshop about storytelling, what to keep in mind when you're storytelling and stuff like that. I'm going to get comfortable someday. And then the last one, that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, which is a bank holiday in Ireland, and I presume it's a bank holiday globally. We'll have to check on that. But that Monday morning would be where you would get your story together and you would tell it at the end. So it's almost an open-ended workshop really, where everybody would try and get their story out and be satisfied with that. And then they can come back in the 1st of February again with that story, maybe change it, continue it, get another story around spring. And so that's what I'm thinking. 5 sessions starting Saturday. Is it the 23rd, 24th and 25th, I think? That's a Saturday, Sunday, Monday before the bank holiday, of the bank holiday in October. And that would be, I think it's €250 for the 5 sessions. But it's going to go on for 4 weekends. So you have Samhain, you have Imbolc, you have Bealtaine, and you have Lunasa. So if you do the 4 weekends, it works out then at 200 each. So that's what I'm thinking. This is kind of going like an advertisement now. But I'm just wondering people's thoughts. Would they be interested? Would they know of people interested? Is that too expensive? What does the days look like? Should people bring their own lunch, or should I have a lunch there and put up the price a little bit or something? If you have any ideas, please let me know, because it's really important to get it right, do you know? And I am working at the moment as well. Look at there now, Ninja and Unity. Oh no, they're stopped. Unity and Ninja were fighting. I'll never get the phone back now. Oh, there we go. I'm also working on getting a little audiobook for Christmas of some of these stories, the Yarn in the Barn stories, because they're nice and long. I had hoped to get a book. Well, you never know. Here we go. Sorry, I hope that the girl rang me again, and hopefully that's the end of it now. Oh, I know. I should definitely do with a secretary. I think, Harold, will you be a secretary? Will you be a secretary? A receptionist. So yeah, that would be great to give advice about the course and what you think, and would people be interested? Because I think it would be lovely, and it would be another way of building up a story family, and we'd work throughout the year, and we could be in contact with each other about how our stories are going. It would be very much oral rather than writing. People can write it, but I'm not going to be officiating over writing, really. I think that's what I love. Storytelling is about the story and telling it and remembering it. Of course, you can take notes and stuff like that, but I prefer people to tell the story than read it. But anyway, that's another side road we're going down. Today's story is from this book of stories, and I forget the author now, of fairy stories that he collected in Ireland. And it's really funny because there's a layer of something in there. And I don't know, is it the teller that's bringing it in? The guy collecting it that's bringing it in? Or is it just me that's seeing that layer? But this story is about a gambler who lived in Kerry, and he went into the fair to start gambling and see would he make money. And he made a few bob, and then he struck up against another gambler. And this gambler was from the north of Ireland. And they started playing poker or whatever card game. And if one fella won, the other fella would win it back, and the other fella would win it back, and the other fella won, and they knew that they were a match for each other. The one fella couldn't bait the other. So they were so excited about this, they said, the Kerry fella said, do you know what we should do now? We should go off on our own for a year and gather as much gold as we can. And we'll meet back here in a year's time. Tá green Briganin Raw Lodger, the sun is a little bit strong. Will it sit there now? Phone. So they went off to see how much they could win. And the fella from Kerry won 2 bags of gold. And the fella from the north won 2.5 bags of gold. So they had 5.5 or 4.5 bags of gold. And the 2 lads decided that they'd live together for a year with all the gold. And they lived very happily in the house. They kept the gold. They didn't spend loads of money or anything like that because they said they wouldn't draw attention to themselves. And they lived happily there, everything going on, until the fella from the north had a dream one night that there was another bag of gold sitting down in the strand. They were near the strand where they were living. So he went down, he told the other fella, he said, will you come down and to me and see what's going on? I've had a dream that there's a bag of gold below in the strand. So the 2 lads went down anyway, and they couldn't see any bag of gold. And next thing, what appeared in front of them was a huge host of people walking along, and 4 lads taking a coffin in front, and they all walking along behind. But they didn't look right as people. They had small eyes, and some had big eyes, and some of them looked fierce, and some of them looked beautiful, and they knew it was a fairy funeral. And the 4 lads walking along with the coffin, and everybody following behind. So the Kerry fella said, I am out of here. There's no way I'm tackling a fairy funeral. And he ran off up to the house. Well, if he did the fella from the north, he grabbed a stick that was near him and he stood up and he said, who goes there? And they all stopped. And he went up and he tapped at the coffin and he said, who's inside there? Well, if he did, the 4 lads dropped the coffin and they all ran away and disappeared. And when he opened the coffin, what was inside? Only a very beautiful girl. She was sound asleep. He woke her up. He tried to wake her up and he couldn't wake her up. So he brought her back to the house and he put her into the spare bed. And for a long time she slept, but eventually she woke up. But she couldn't talk. There was no way she could get a word out, only different kinds of sounds. So the Northern Ireland fella said, there's no way we're going to hurt you. We look after you. So they kept her for a year and she stayed in the house and she got on very well with them and she helped out with the housework and everything was going fine, but she couldn't speak. And a year to the day, you wouldn't believe it, the Northern Ireland fella had another dream, that there was another bag of gold down the strand. Well, he went down into the strand anyway, and who did he see but the fairies again? They had no coffin with them or anything this time, but they headed over into the fairy fort. And if they did, he followed them very carefully. And my goodness, 'twas only a furrock of a thing, 'twas only a ruin. But when the fairies went in, it turned into the most beautiful, fantastic castle you ever saw in your life. Beautiful fabrics and great lights and ornaments and everything adorned the walls. Everything was absolutely beautiful. And next thing, a feast was brought out on the table. And everything was going fine. And he could hear the fairies talking. And one fairy said to the king fairy, he said, any news of the girl that your man stole from us last year? And the fairy king said, oh, our spies have been out. And there was a cat came back and told us that she's working with him and she's very friendly with him, but she can't talk. And then one fella said, 'tis a pity that your man isn't listening now, because he'd know that this horn here, 3 drinks out of this horn, he was holding a very ornate, beautiful goblet in the shape of a horn, would make her better. And then he could see the pin on the top of her head that I put in there. And if he took that pin out, she'd be able to talk. So your man stayed very quietly outside the fort. And the night went on with drinking and eating and singing and talking and fairies casting spells on each other and doing all sorts of gymnastics and acrobatics. But as the night drew close, they were all getting a bit sleepy, because they are kind of human as well, the fairies, and they got a bit sleepy. And your man saw his chance and he went in and he grabbed the horn that your man was drinking out of and he ran home as quick as he could. And he kept looking back to see was there anything following him, and nothing was. Well, he went straight up to the girl and he said, take 3 sups out of this. And the girl took 3 sups, and your man was very afraid of the fairies. So he ran back home again, or ran back to the fort and threw the horn back into the fort. And before they knew it, they woke up, they had their horn back, and they weren't too sure what had happened. Well, he went home and the girl was much better and she was making sounds and everything like that. And then he could see the pin on the top of her head and he said, "Excuse me, madam, just let me." And he took the pin out and she was able to talk. She was telling him that she was from a place just outside Dublin and that her mother and father were very rich and they'd be very delighted to see her again. So your man said, "Look, I'll go off and I'll talk to your parents because the journey'd be too long and they might get a shock when they see you. So write a letter telling them everything and say a couple of secrets that only they know that you know." So she wrote the letter and he went off and he went up to the parents in Dublin, and of course the fairies had left a changeling in her place. There was a fairy body that they buried in the graveyard, the mother and father. And when your man went there, the father was still grieving over the little girl that was gone. Well, she was a woman now, the woman that was gone, her daughter, and the mother wasn't much better, and he wanted to see them and he said, "I've news of your daughter." Well, the chef went out, the cook went out, and she said, "I'll give him a baiting now, talking about the poor daughter," and she did. And she was flying out when the mistress came out, and your man said, "I have news of your daughter. Please let me in to talk to you and your husband." Well, the mistress brought him in anyway, and he sat down and he said, "I have a letter here from your daughter." Well, the girl's father said, "You must be looking to be shot because there's my poor daughter is over in the graveyard, and how could you be saying you've a letter from her?" He said, "No, please look at the letter, please." And it took him a lot of persuading. And the father opened the letter and he read it and he started crying all over again, because there was things in that letter that only the daughter knew. And he said, "There seems to be some sense in this." And the mother read it and there was only things that she knew that the daughter knew in it. And she said, "There's definitely something in this." So they went over to the graveyard and they dug up where they had buried their daughter. And when they opened it, it was all just leaves and twigs and stones. And they knew there was something going on with the fairies. So your man went home and he said, They said, "Oh, send up our daughter now straight away to us and we'll look after her." But your man was a bit worried that if he sent the daughter up, he might never see her again and might not be able to get married to her, because he wanted to get married to her and she wanted to get married to him. But he said maybe the father and the mother wouldn't be too liking. So he said, "No, ye come down to where she is now." And that was in his head all the time. "Ye come down and see where she is." So he went down with the mother and father and all their servants and their carriage and everything like that. Whoops. Are you there? And they met the daughter, and the father and mother were delighted to meet her, and they put their hands around her and they hugged her and they said, "Oh, it's great to see you." And so the next morning they were getting into the carriage and they said, "Come on, daughter, now we're heading back home." And she said, "Well, what about the man that found me? We want to get married." And they said, "There's no way you can get married to him because he's only a poor fisherman, and there's no way, he's a way lower than our class, and there's no way that he can marry you." Well, your man said, "Come in here now first." And he showed him the 4.5 bags of gold with a little bit gone for renting the house and a few bits and pieces. And he said, "Tell me now that if you have more than that, you're welcome to go away." Oh, they said, "Well, nobody has more than that. 4.5 bags of gold. You're talking the king would have that maybe." So they let him marry the girl and they all went off, and he went to live outside Dublin, and the fella from Kerry got married after that as well. And they all lived happily ever after. But it was interesting for me, like there is always this layer of like the two men living together. And I don't know, is it just me that sees it, or is it the fella that was collecting that put it in there, or was it the storyteller himself? But I don't know, there's something about the idea of the two lads went to live together and then it broke up because of a marriage. But I also like the idea that that's why he didn't let her go up to her family straight away. He knew that they might take her from him. So that's why he wanted to get married first before she could meet her parents and stuff like that, you know. So have a think. Let me know what you think about those workshops. Is it a good idea? Audiobook for Christmas, all these stories, I'd re-record them. Maybe, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 stories. And how much do you charge for an audiobook then is the next question. I hope you have a lovely week. I'll be back in the morning at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll be talking to the patrons on the phone, online, on Zoom even. So I look forward to that as well. And we'll see you then. It's good to be back in Yarn from the Barn. Slán in Ishgach